yeah, I was a product marketing manager, and I was hired because before that I used to work for SAP, and I worked at HQ in Germany.
Okay.
And there were some changes, and I got an offer. And so what Siebel did, they were really flying high. They were like MBA schools in the US, and there were first people, and they did a short system. They would they were 13 people. And they would go to Harvard and all these places. They would have 10 people. The 5 best survive, right? So they've been doing them for a couple of years in the US. They did it very successfully. They did very aggressive. And they went to Europe to do that for the first time. And they went to LBS, London Business School. My best friend, he actually, at the time, studying MBA at London Business School. Huge hires. Okay.
Right, guys.
Siebel, by Siebel, and there were people from those schools. I had my MBA from University of Calgary, so I had to go to there were these changes, there were these changes, and I was up until then, I was never thinking of going in those also pure strategy, go to London. There were like hundreds of people, and I was completely relaxed. So I went to the lunch, and then they
hiring man.
I was just yeah. And I just did well, and I think they really wanted a job. Yeah, it was like completely. But then so they offered me relatively, and I was able to relocate on September 13th, 2005.
Whoa. All right. So let's take a seat, everyone. We can start. Hopefully. Let's get in. Guys, keynote is starting. You can bring pizza, anything you want. Okay.
No, please.
Great.
All right. Good. Sorry, James, we had some troubles because we have pizzas already, and of course people cannot bring food in the auditorium, so that's very greedy. No worries, guys. So everybody loves pizza. All right, so first of all, welcome everybody to the very first World Product Day organized by Mind the Product. Usually, as all other meetups, I would have some slides and I would introduce the meetup myself. But today we have the honor of having Mind the Product CEO James Myers calling live from London. So I believe I will just hand the word to James.
Hey folks, it's great to meet you. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Fantastic. Okay. Let me bounce back to that screen share. Here we go. Can you see the slides okay?
Yep.
Fantastic. So, for those who are new to Product Tank, or those who've not come across us before, I thought it might be interesting to give you a little bit of a backdrop. The reason we're hosting World Product Tank today is that it's actually the 8th anniversary of the very first Product Tank in London. When we ran that Product Tank in London 8 years ago, it was 20 people in a little pub in London with a couple hundred quid behind the bar to pay for some beer. And a few managers stumbled out into the street afterwards and said, "Thank you so much, this was like therapy." Apparently product management is a pretty lonely task. Hands up if you've worked with insane CEOs or unruly stakeholders, demands that are completely unrealistic. You get the engineers ganging up on you. It can be pretty hard work. So Product Tank was originally created to bring product people together and give them some support in London. What we didn't expect was for Product Tank to take off and go global. So with this first ever World Product Day, we have Product Tank meetups happening in 90 cities around the world. There's actually a total of 150 cities that now run Product Tank meetups of one sort or another, and well over 100,000 product managers that are members of the community around the world. We're running across 43 countries, 20 different time zones today, and we're trying to do intros and quick conversations with as many different product tanks in different cities as possible. So this is now by far the world's largest product management community. Hashtags World Product Day. Product Tank, please do make some noise. So to give you an idea of what's going on, we actually kicked off World Product Day over in Canberra, Australia, New Zealand. We've worked through India and some of the Asian subcontinent. Right now, we've got some product tanks finishing up in a couple of Eastern European countries, in Istanbul and Bucharest. And now it's about to get busy. Europe's kicking off, right? So Prague is coming together. We've got a number of these other cities that are just starting their own meetups. In fact, colleagues on my team are doing intros right now to half a dozen other cities. I'm sitting backstage for London. The London Product Tank actually kicks off in just a half hour. And in fact, if I take a little walk, I can see we are going to have about 350 attendees for Product Tank London. That's huge. And one of the reasons that we wanted to do this was to give people an idea of exactly how big the community is as a whole. Now, obviously, we have the individual meetups around the world. They're fantastic. We love for people to get involved in that. There's also a Mind the Product Slack community, though. I don't know how many of you have found it. There's about 15,000 members in the Mind the Product Slack community right now. We'd love for you to get involved, join up. There are channels there for tool sets, processes, agile, mentoring, even job seeking, all kinds of things. So do get involved in that Slack conversation. We also want to hear from more of you. We get a lot of stories on the blog at the moment that come from, as you might expect, product companies in London and San Francisco particularly. But I think there's a lot more stories to be told. We'd love to hear stories from product managers around the rest of Europe and the rest of the world, talking about what they're working on, what's interesting, what's challenging, what problems they've actually solved. The best of those articles will then go in the weekly newsletter, along with other amazing things that we find around the web that we think product managers might find useful. So get involved, jump on that newsletter, it comes out every week, and it's purely product management brain fodder. I hope some of you will see you at the conference either in San Francisco or London this year. I'll certainly be at both. We've got a capacity of around 1,500 for that conference, and it will be oversubscribed. So if you're thinking of coming to join us, do so quickly. The final piece from me on the product community, our big project for the last 12 months, has actually been looking at product management training. If you've been following the World Product Tank hashtag today, you'll notice that an awful lot of people are telling their stories of how they got involved in product management in the first place. The vast majority of people started accidentally. So what we've started doing is running training sessions, both public workshops, but also delivering corporate training to organisations. So if you want to hear more about that, check out the page, hit us up, get involved. The job board's there as well, help yourself. For me, I'm actually going to step back. My job here is to actually run the events, support the events, and do everything we can to make these things fun, engaging, offer you the ability to learn. But I think it's best if you hear from real product managers who are doing jobs today, people who are solving problems, solving challenges, and taking the craft forwards. So I'm going to give a quick shout out to Amplitude, who've actually funded a lot of live stream costs for us this week. And other than that, I'm going to get out and leave you guys to it. I hope you have a thoroughly spectacular product tank this evening. I hope you enjoy being part of the community. I look forward to seeing progress in the future and maybe meeting some of you in person. Thank you very much for having me along this evening. Have a great night.
I failed at introducing you the Prague PM community of product tanks. It's actually the folks are sticking around for quite a couple of years now. And many of them are actually, a couple of them in this room are actually flying over to San Francisco, including myself from Mind the Product. Some of them come to London, so they sort of are in the loop. So this is topics we love to discuss always and to stay in the loop. So thanks a lot.
Excellent.
Thanks a lot, James, for the foreword, and good luck with the London meetup and with all the other meetups today.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. Have a great time.
Cheers. Bye-bye. So, guys, it was great having James in the call, and now we should actually have Michael connected, which is live streaming from Redmond headquarters of Microsoft, but I don't see him and I don't hear him. So
Can you hear me now?
I hear him. Hey, Michael. And we can see him. Maybe Alex is going to stretch him to be larger somehow. Because we didn't try this before, so it's all live. So one thing about the first World Product Day is, as James said, there are more than 90 cities across the world doing Product Tank meetups today, and just a few of them, just a handful of them, are actually live streaming, and that does include Pug. So you can say hi to your mom on YouTube because you're actually being live streamed. So I can. Maybe I'll just ask a second, Alex, to make Michael a little bit bigger for us. All right, and meanwhile, I can call the other two panelists, Olda and Luis, to have a seat, so we can get it started. So, today's topic of the meetup is going to be a chat, sort of a fireside chat about OKRs, objectives and key results. And it's a topic that you voted a lot, so you actually we actually care a lot at Product Tank to try to and poll you guys and trying to do what is interesting and relevant for you. To this end, there is a little piece of paper that everybody's throwing on the floor or everything, but in reality, this is a mini survey we're running just to understand how did you like this meetup and what you want to see next. And see next may mean really what you want to see next. We did everything, including beer, product, yoga. It's not just topics. Or if you want to be a speaker, you can put everything you want there, outdoor activities or anything. And we're going to really carefully go through those and listen to you. The reason why it's a paper one, it's just two simple questions, is because nobody answered to the digital one, or just a few people did. So we want to get more responses from you guys in the room. So the second, thank you, Luis. The second question, you can answer anytime it comes to your mind, because it's really about what you want to see next. And the first one, just at the end of the meetup. And you can just put it on the table or leave it on the chair so we'll collect it later. So thank you for that. So we have, I'm going to introduce, so who's for the first time at the Product Tank today? So a bunch of people. So you guys had the introduction from James about what is Product Tank. Myself, I'm Paolo. I created originally the product management community over 3 years ago. But then there are still a lot of folks in the room from the original PM community. Then together with Daniel, Farana, and Dave Rusius, which are not here but are going to come soon, we merged it into Product Tank and Mind the Product. I myself am a product manager. I teach product management at the University of Economics, and I worked as a product management consultant for startups and companies doing product management. And I'm going to introduce you these folks sitting here. So Luis first is group product manager, lead product manager here at MSD. So he plays home. And Olda is the CBO, and he's probably going to explain us what the CBO is at Storyous, and he's a former VP of product at a couple of companies before. And connecting directly from Microsoft headquarters in Redmond is Michael, who is a Microsoft product manager, actually coming from Prague, but now working in the US from Skype. Hi, Michael, can you hear us?
I do, yes.
That's fantastic. Okay, so today's topic is OKR. I'm going to keep the conversation just flow very informally. what you can do, meanwhile, as we speak, is to put your questions on Slido or even upvote. These words are some of the things you were writing while signing up for this meetup. So are some of your questions or concerns. You can upvote some of those, put new questions, upvote new questions as we speak about OKRs. I know there are a lot of doubts about it. So I guess we're just going to start asking these folks what is OKRs and why are important for them. The reason why I chose these three panelists is because they represent three different dimensions of companies. So Alder represents a startup, which is sort of a smaller size team, more dynamic. Luis represents sort of a mid-sized organization, which is this MSD IT Innovation Hub, and Michael represents a bigger, larger organization. And from my experience, having implemented OKRs in several teams, actually there might be differences of implementation and practical examples, and this is why I created the panel with different kind of experiences. So any one of you can start. So what is OKRs? Why is it important to you?
Well, for me, it sounds like a really simple framework. You know, you set an objective, you set the key results, and voila. But in reality, it's much more difficult. To keep it short, it's really just a simple framework to manage and communicate what a team or what you should focus on. So that's basically the concept. But the implementation and actually working with that framework and providing that focus, it's quite a lot harder than it sounds.
So Alder, what is a chief business officer and why chief business officers do OKRs?
Okay. It's great to be here. Thank you for the invitation. So CBO, that's my formal title, stands for Chief Business Officer. Probably most of you have heard of COO, Chief Operating Officer. In my company where I work right now, there was COO before. And when they looked for replacement, they wanted to do a couple of tweaks. And then really in a nutshell, CEO basically looks outside to the world, make sure that there are new markets, there's excitement about a company, there's an investment if there is needed, and things like that. On the other hand, COO is basically responsible for making sure that the engine is running well, that the company works as good as possible. So majority of my work is basically sort of COO-like. Nevertheless, since the very beginning, there was a requirement from the CEO that he doesn't want me to stay just within the context of the company, but he wants me to be involved also in the business side of things. So it's basically COO with a bit of a business twist. And a nice segue is actually, when we talk about like OKRs, there was actually a condition for me to join the company. When I was interviewed for the first time, I was told that OKR plays a pretty important role at Storyous, even though we are a startup. And I was asked if I know something about it, what's my take on it. And as a part of the interview process, I was actually asked to present OKRs and my experience and my recommendation to Storyous. So, and I mentioned that because I think it was somewhere on the Slido or some of the notes I got is that very often people within the organization feel pushback and not buy-in from key stakeholders. It's interesting. I was lucky enough that I was actually it was part of the deal. It was like we do it OKRs way.
So that's not the guy that can answer you the question on Slido. How do I convince my boss to do OKRs?
Well, I can talk about it actually for a little bit because when I interviewed for Storyous, I had some experience. I've known about the methodology. Was actually introduced to it by Amit Onikar from Skype, so that was pretty good. And
I happens to be Michael's boss.
Okay, okay. And I have unsuccessfully tried to introduce it in my previous company. So I really tried, and I had some interesting discussions with my CEO in my previous company, and for him it was a little bit too new agey. So I did not succeed, and I was happy to move to the organization which actually works with OKRs on a daily basis.
Awesome. So before we ask Michael, so how many of you has heard or are informed about OKRs in the audience? So almost half of them, and I'm not surprised because I asked you this question at the sign up, are not informed about it or haven't tried it yet. So it's a framework. I don't want to say what it is because they're going to explain it for us, but it's a methodology that is being used by top companies such as Google, Apple, Facebook, Twitter, and you name it, we have it, to be more successful. And it strongly relates to product, as we're going to see. We're going to listen to a couple of stories and examples of how it actually works and what are all the possible flavors. And definitely one of the first companies that actually made it spread, it's not the company that has invented, but the company that made it spread, was Google, that is using OKRs a lot. And Michael Boss actually comes from Google, so this is why he's trying to push it in Skype and Microsoft as well. So Michael, you want to tell us something about OKRs, what it is for you guys, why it's important, how it's working out?
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for having me. It's great to be back in Prague, at least virtually, you know. So the OKRs, I think it applies what folks in the room already said. What also is important in a larger scale organization is using OKRs to actually get alignment across the whole organization and across the whole company. There's a lot of teams who work on Skype or any other product, and to keep a track, for the leadership or for anybody else in the company on what is actually going on, OKR is the tool to do that. So not just that it helps you to focus on the things that are important for you, but it actually gives visibility to the whole organization as to what you are doing.
So does anybody, yeah, go ahead. You want to say something else?
That's it for now.
All right. So does anybody in the room want any of these folks to explain us briefly what is the OKR framework, what are objectives, what are key results? Anybody wants? All right, so maybe one of you can take the word and explain what are objectives and what are key results, because the minority in the room doesn't know that, so it would be a good part to start. Set just the context. I know that the others of you know that.
So objectives, who doesn't know what an objective is? So it should be SMART, which is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. So I don't think that really requires further explanation. But in the context of the OKR framework, it's basically one of the drivers that should be defined up front. What is high-level the objective that you want to achieve? So if you want to, I don't know, increase your newsletter subscription by X amount, that would be your let's say, high-level objective. Then the key result is actually the results that you want to achieve. So high-level objective will be to increase the subscription for the newsletter. One of the key results would be actually to increase it by 500 additional subscribers within the first week, then an additional 1,000 by the second week. So you drill down the actual results that you want to obtain through that objective. One of the things of the key results is the word key. It should be really the key thing that you want to achieve. So that's just really in a nutshell what OKRs are, and then the method of how you do that we can touch later. But yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything.
So as you add to that, maybe you can also explain us the difference between traditional KPIs, because managers, old-style managers, old-school managers always used to use these business KPIs and OKRs, including whatever you wanted to add to.
So I look at OKRs very strategically, and the beauty of this concept is it is pretty simple. If you do your homework, if you Google stuff, you can read and understand the concept within 5 to 10 minutes. It's not difficult. But the beauty of it is, when I was thinking about this and how to explain that, we can define what a good key result is. For me, basically the concept is methodology or framework or way of getting shit done, really, strategically, okay? And then it is very important to understand that the point of working and living in OKR is not to go some book and copy stuff, from A to Z. It's a blueprint. Just I would recommend personally look at it. try to understand it, discuss it with your stakeholders, and just implement it and start doing it as soon as possible. There is no, from my perspective, and I must admit, I had hands-on experience with that for 6 months. So it's relatively short, but I already have some experience. You need to start doing it if you buy into the concept, and quarter by quarter, start doing it, improve it, review it, and live basically the entire cycle. I think the beauty of this concept is focus and prioritization. I've been around for far too long, and I've heard, and I was personally in situations that there were 10 priorities number one. And I like to say that priority number one is always only one. And it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but it is very, very difficult to implement that. And the way I discuss with my bosses and my teams is that if I show up in the middle of nowhere and I ask people to do something and I say it's priority number one, I expect the team and other people to say, okay, that's fine, we'll do that. But these are the things which are not being touched at the moment. And this is not happening. And I tried it with my bosses, and I tried it with my team. And OKRs actually help with that. You cannot have 50 priorities for the quarter. You can manage 5, or depending on the size of the organization, or if you're a startup or large organization, there are differences. So this concept fundamentally helps you to focus. So that's one thing. Focus what you're actually doing. And there is what I have experienced many times throughout my career. There's a beautiful, unfortunately, Czech expression, Oldrich každismus. So from wall to wall. Like, we do this or we do that, and it's 100 degrees difference, right? 180 degrees difference. So this helps with that focus, and that is one very important thing. And the other beauty of OKR is basically cascading. It should start at the company level or department level, and it should cascade throughout the organization, ideally at the individual employee level, so everybody understands where the company is going, and how what I do on daily basis fits into that strategy. And this is not happening. This concept has been around for a very long time. The business has been here for a century, but a lot of people are completely confused about what the management is doing. And from my past experience, I do have. I was part of large organizations like SAP or Oracle or Autodesk. And I have experiences both from the local subsidiary here in the Czech Republic or elsewhere or in Germany, and then HQ. And there was complete disconnect because people here frantically work on the business, selling stuff and doing marketing locally. And then there were these huge organizations, HQ teams, working on these beautiful strategies, and there was complete disconnect. And there was a frustration on both sides because it's very easy to say, oh, these guys in Munich or in New York or in England, they know shit because this is they don't understand anything. And the teams at the HQ levels are completely frustrated because they really work hard. There's some great stuff typically going on, and the feedback is like, why you're not using it? So I think OKR can help actually to bring these two parties together, so to speak.
It's good. So, Mike, do you want to add to it? So, OKRs.
One point I agree with what Luke said. One thing that I would like add on is that OKRs actually also contain grading of the OKRs that you set for the quarter. So it's not like that you just set OKRs for each quarter and you're like, okay, we're gonna do this. In the next 3 months, we're just going to deliver it. But actually, then you go and at the end of the quarter, you revisit the OKRs, and you're like, okay, so how did we actually deliver on each of the objectives that we have set at the beginning of the quarter? And this really helps to create accountability and responsibility in the company. So everyone is actually working on what they said they will be working on because of they will know that they will be graded at the end, and it just fosters action in the company.
So the guys brought up a very good point. So there are 3 levels of OKRs. The company objectives and key results. At the team level, you set objectives and key results. And even down to the personal level, you can set, you should set your OKRs. Now, what Mike and Olga were saying is that if you have personal OKRs, it's good to align them with the big boss's strategy at the company and a team or business unit level, as well as you look at them every day and you figure out if the work you're doing is actually aligned with the stuff you guys set as a team, or if you're just diverging from it. And but they brought up a different dimension of stuff I wanted to ask you, which is, okay, but these OKRs are being graded, are being scored.
Mm-hmm.
So is my performance evaluation as an employee connected somehow to these OKRs?
So this is the point where I advocated for looking at a framework and deciding for yourself what works and what does not work. There are different school of thoughts, so to speak. There are organizations which actually link the delivery on key results to salary and bonuses and things like that, and there are organizations which do not link. They do not do that, and there are cons and pros for each of those approaches. I would actually personally advocate, based on my limited experience, not to link it directly to money.
So what do you do as Storyous, for instance?
The key,
If
like
they're linked to your performance, your personal OKRs are linked to your performance.
Okay.
For instance, if you are a salesperson at Storyous, you need to sell for 1 million Czech crowns, and that's also your objective, and then you get your bonus on that, or how does it work?
So right now at Storyous, and just to give you a feeling, obviously out of the three panelists, I represent the smallest organization, so we are anywhere between 70 to 80 people. So it's not very tiny, but it is pretty small. So what we have started doing, and we started with that Q3 2016. So the company has already some experience. So we have each quarter we have company OKR, and then basically the entire management has their own OKRs, and these objectives very clearly need to be linked to the company objective, and then the team leads actually communicate accordingly with their respective teams. We do not have OKRs at the individual level yet, and quite honestly, I don't see that anytime soon. So this is what as much as we can manage to at the departmental level. So mainly it is a vehicle for the management. And it's not directly linked to the money, but we are externally funded. So we have a board meeting every month. So we better work hard to have a good story to tell to our investors. Otherwise, it might get very unpleasant. So we are motivated. I'm not saying connected directly to your salaries is wrong, but there are other more meaningful way to feel connected to those goals. And internal motivation is always the best, I guess.
By the way, guys, as we speak, all of you can just pull off your phones and go on slido.com. There is this code 2262, and you can either upvote questions, or as we speak and we raise different angles of methodology, examples and stuff, you can have even a specific question naming Louis, Olga, or Mike in the question. So that basically at the end of the panel, the guys are going to try to address your questions as well.
So I've got a question for you. So how does that look actually?
You should use Slido. And you can, by the way, you can upvote other
Or we can actually talk to each other, right? That's also old school. I'm old guy, so we can actually talk to each other.
How does that company OKR, how does the communication to those 70 people, 80 people that you have, how does that work? Is it a monthly meeting where the CEO and
So now we have a system that in a given quarter, in the middle of month 3, we have a management offsite meeting where we get together, discuss the strategy, and we plan high level objective key results for the following quarter. And then we have monthly all hands meeting where we communicate what the plans are. We try to explain it, how it fits into the overall story of our company, and that's pretty much how we do it. And these all hands meetings are on monthly basis. So the update on the progress of OKRs is always. So this is how we communicate to the entire company. Also, what I would like to also add, what is pretty important, and I think this is critical, this should not be left out, and pretty cool about the concept, is total transparency. If you want to do that, the point is that everybody in the company should be able to look in what the other departments are doing and what the progress is. So that may be scary, probably in larger organizations, but it is actually pretty cool. And by the way, with these all hands meetings, sometimes we get pretty tough questions. It's like probably two months ago, we got questions through Slido. We also use Slido, and the question is like, so are we always going to do everything just to fulfill some artificial OKRs? So we're being challenged. That's actually pretty cool. At first, it feels like, damn, we do something wrong because people do not understand. On the other hand, it's actually pretty awesome because it means that people are thinking about it and they are not clear. So we communicate it like that.
So actually, Louis' point is very important. So when we went through the initial definitions of what is OKR for these three folks, I have my own definition that very much links to these ones, because Olda mentioned, for instance, hey, people don't know what's going on, or we communicate to the whole company in a whole hands meeting, or we raise questions. So I see OKR as a communication framework, and the communication paradigm that needs to happen for setting these goals and these key results, and even for grading them, is as much important as the goals themselves. So I wanted to ask actually Michael from Redmond, how does it work for you? What's the communication framework you guys use in order to be able to set and align on the team and personal and company OKRs at the beginning of the quarter?
Yes, that's a good question. So basically, each quarter, there is a big meeting, a big offsite of the leadership team, which is including usually all the product manager and engineering leads. And on this meeting, first it is communicated what is the company level OKRs. What is the company going after? Then how does it translate to individual teams? How does it translate to, I'm part of a commerce team, so we have a team of 5 product managers working on certain areas in the app. And before we actually do this meeting, we have a lot of discussions internally as to what is each of the person's personal OKRs. So just to build on that point that we mentioned also, we actually do have individual level OKRs for each person, but we do it at the moment only for the product management organization. So it's not done, the personal level OKRs are not done for engineering, on engineering level, but it is done on the product management level. Even though engineering is also using OKRs, they are not as heavily reliant on that because the business part of things is mainly run by product. Right?
And since you mentioned that, Michael, is your individual OKRs as a product manager somehow connected to your performance review? Because Olda was answering to that for Storyous.
Yeah, so actually I wanted to follow up on that, and I think it's inherently wrong to link your personal performance to your OKRs and how you do that. Because if you think about it, the whole idea about OKRs is that they are aspirational, right? They should always push you to do more, and even by default, you expect to hit just 70% of your OKRs. So if you think about it, and if you were to evaluate people based on their OKRs and how they delivered on their grades, it would lead them to set lower goals, right? So they would just be like, oh, I cannot do this, and they would basically look for excuses and just put there less things what to do, rather than being aspiring to do actually more. So if you would link your personal performance evaluation to OKR, you would set maybe 2 or 3 goals which you are certain to hit, right? And then maybe you would hit one more goal, and you would be like, oh, look, I did 120% of my OKRs, I want a promotion, I want everything, right? But in the end, if you don't link that, you can set 6 goals, 6 bigger goals, or 5 bigger goals, and you can hit them all if you are in luck, and that actually helps the company more.
Awesome. And back to the communication paradigm. So who is setting the OKRs for the whole product in your case, or business unit, and for the individual teams. And now you guys communicated, you do some all-hands, and now you guys review it at the end of the quarter. So the same thing that Oldrich explained, how do they work at Microsoft-Skype?
Yeah, so for my business unit, for the commerce team, it's actually Amit Panikar that Oda mentioned. So he's my manager, and he's basically setting the OKRs for my team. And then he works with the leadership team on aligning those goals with the overall strategy for the company. And it's definitely not just top down. So it's not like, hey, you are supposed to work on this, and that. We are actually very encouraged to come up with our own objectives, our own ideas, which brings in new ideas and also creates sense of ownership for everyone who's involved.
Okay, if I may add,
yeah, absolutely,
very briefly, top down and bottom up, creating OKRs. If you go by the book, the theory says that at least 60% of the OKR should go bottom up. So if you work with your teams, it should be actually not bosses coming dictating what should be done. It should be mutual conversation, and again, more should come from the team. So that's one thing I would like to add, and then I'd like to share actually one practical experience what we are doing at Storyous. And as I said before, just look at the framework, decide whether it's right for you, and try doing it. Don't copy it. And what happened at Storyous is actually something not by the book. But what happened is that a couple of quarters before, head of product, and this is the right audience for that, head of product and head of development showed up at a management meeting, and they said, we don't believe it actually makes sense to have separate OKRs for product and from development. I mean, this is we're working on the same thing. So the head of product and head of development said, we want to have the same OKRs. Which again, is not by the book. It's not. Nobody says you should not do that. I've never seen it before, and I was very pleased to actually see that. I was in VP of product roles in the past, and the tension between the head of product and head of development was my daily bread and butter. So when I saw here actually those teams coming together and says let's work on the same thing, that is actually something which I think we can consider as a success of our own implementation of OKR.
Okay, awesome. So, Luis, actually, I also wanted to ask you, what about your personal OKR? How do you feel about your personal OKR? Are they useful? Are they not? The guys already mentioned how they use them. In the case of Skype, for instance, they do it just for the product managers. If you did the same, you are the product manager, so you still need to do it.
So, my personal OKRs, and you mentioned, it's not just to get the focus and prioritize, it's more of a communicational element or framework. So my personal experience with my personal OKRs has been that we're new in establishing this kind of rapport or kind of schedule and review with my manager and even within my team. But if you're reviewing them on a weekly basis and you've started with a rough OKR, which I think most of us always do, and we refine as we go through the quarter. I had a really nice experience, I think, 2 weeks ago with my manager, in which one of my OKRs was to provide a talk at least once in the quarter explaining the benefits of one of the solutions we have developed to a really defined target audience. It was just that. That was the rough OKR. So it was really kind of Boolean, and as we were talking, he said, you know what, why don't you extend that and go beyond, and let's try to make that talk go a bit wider in its scope, and why don't you refine it and say this OKR should be about actually reaching, I don't know, 300, 400 people with your talk, and you could schedule that way several talks. I was like, oh, I hadn't looked at that. And then he said, you know what, I already have some people in mind that I can hook you up with and, you know, make additional talks. So where I started really at the beginning of the quarter thinking it would be good to give this talk and, you know, explain the benefits of this product, just to, you know, I was mentally kind of constrained. As we were going through the framework and refining that OKR, it kind of made it a lot more ambitious. And so for me, it's really the communication aspect of it that really makes it really a powerful framework.
Actually, that brings also another very interesting point, which is how do you write your OKRs? Or it's better to say, how do you even think about your OKRs? Because you write them what you think. So Luis was bringing a practical example about something he said. Olda and Mike, do you guys have examples of badly written objectives and key results versus something practical from your business that you've seen, for instance, in your team, somebody in your team writing something in a crappy way, and you helped as a manager rephrasing in a way it's better measurable or anything like that?
Yeah, so we, as I said before, we always start at the offsite meeting, and we basically brainstorm together as a management team, and we started with the corporate OKRs, and then the department heads go back to their drawing board, so to speak, and they work on their OKRs, and then basically the CEO and I, we actually review. They come to us, they present those OKRs, and we discuss. We ask questions. We challenge that. We discuss how their departmental OKRs fit into the company OKR. And it's very sometimes it's loud, sometimes it's very emotional, but it's a back and forth discussion. I would not say I've seen examples of crappy OKRs. We are at the beginning as the company, and the people who actually run the departments are competent, but we are learning not only at the individual level, but also at the company, just to do them right. So what I've seen very frequently that the key results are not specific enough, right? Improve something, and the discussion is how do you define that? Improve something by 30%, or let's say instead of finishing some operation in the product, if you can do it with 5 clicks today, and then we aspire to do that with 4 clicks. So that's always that is always the discussion. So it's not about crappiness. It is about being as specific as possible. And sometimes what we sort of struggle with a little bit is that sometimes we project our daily operational stuff into the stuff. So people can talk for many hours about what they are doing on a daily basis. And the point of the discussion is like, hold on, calm down, let's talk about key results, very specific stuff, and don't tell me how you're going to do that. So that's the conversation we are doing. And very honestly, as a management, we think like, we're looking back and we have some experience, but we're also wondering, are we actually doing it right? So some quarters feel better than the others, right? Definitely.
So Mike, what about your case? Do you have examples of good and bad OKRs, and how maybe your manager helps framing them in a way that makes better sense?
Yeah, so I would like to say that the OKRs and the key results especially should always be very specific, as Oda said. They should always have a number attached to them. It can be either like improvement by percentage or an absolute number or something like that.
Can you give some examples maybe from your OKRs at Skype? I'll mention one, for instance, one key result. You should know them from top of your mind, right?
I mean, I cannot think of any crappy.
Of a good one. So give us.
I can think of a good one. So for example, we had a key or objective to increase the conversion rates and the sales of a certain product, and we have basically broken it down into the key results as increase conversion rate of this page by 10%, increase the visits to the page by 2,000 visits a day, and so on. So this was very obvious that at the end of the quarter, when we went back to the evaluation and we said, okay, the conversion rate increased, but it increased only by 6%. So we should rate it at 6. Then number of visits actually increased by 3,000 instead of 2,000. And so this, at the end of the quarter, we were very clear on if we have achieved that objective by evaluating the key results. And I think that is the key in practicing OKRs.
So if I get you correctly, Michael, basically what you did, you had the overall objective of increasing the conversion, and then you've broken down the funnel of that conversion into the...
So the objective was increasing revenue. Let me correct myself. It was increasing the revenue. The key result, how to get there was, through increasing conversion, increasing number of visits to the page, and so on.
I get you. Okay, so another question I wanted to ask you guys, because actually Olda mentioned a very important point. So he said, some quarters it feels like we are doing it better, some quarters it feels we are doing it worse. So doing OKRs is not easy, and it doesn't come like for free. It requires time and effort and a lot of coordination and communication between the teams. And personally, when I was trying to implement it with several teams, I've even seen that some of the teams after a while just give up. So it doesn't stick. They try it for 1 quarter, 2 quarters, then they give up and it doesn't work. So starting is difficult, at least in my experience, and also keeping it doing it because of the quarters where you don't see too much value in it, or maybe you don't do it so good, is also difficult. So Luis, can you give us some examples of what you think about starting OKRs? By the way, at MSD, you're sort of bootstrapping it from the current quarter, so what are the challenges at starting with OKRs?
It's definitely been time. So we've underestimated the amount of time it takes to actually put the framework in place and to actually craft the actual OKRs. 12 weeks, it goes by like that, and we've burned like 3 weeks just drafting the OKRs, and then another week just reviewing and getting the peer review and getting, the time that it takes to actually get in place a nicely acceptable objective with its key results it's really time consuming if you're just starting with the framework, and it's something that we've underestimated heavily here at MSD. But on the other hand, it's really worth the investment, because through those conversations of trying to refine, trying to understand what is the actual result that you want to achieve, and really defining how you want to increase and by how much and how are we going to measure it. That's kind of the whole purpose. It's not the actual outcome, it's what happens in between, those conversations and the actual work that happens to try and get that started. So we're still bootstrapping it. We're going to change definitely some of the things that how we started implementing it here at MSC for the next quarter, learning from some of the let's say failures of setting up OKRs to set up the OKRs.
Can you mention one failure, for example? What went wrong as you guys tried, for instance?
So one of the things, and it's not to be against transparency, so we've been very transparent and gotten a lot of feedback from different teams on OKRs of not necessarily related teams. So there's a lot of collaboration, but I think some of the people took it as, cool, thank you for the feedback, so it means you're going to actually help us achieve this OKR. So one of the failures was that we are definitely being transparent, but we took it the wrong way, that we thought that each of the feedbacks coming from different teams would be actually kind of signing up for that OKR. And I think another one was, because of that, we thought that there would be a lot of cross-pollination, cross-collaboration, which we thought would happen naturally, but it really hasn't. So, yeah.
So it takes effort to make it up.
Yeah.
So Olga, from your point of view, actually, I would like to extend the question. So, because you were not there when Storyous started doing OKRs, but I know you collected already from the CEO some stories which you can share with us about the challenges of, if any, or maybe some fuck-up stories similar to the one we shared. And also the second follow-up question for you is, as a chief business officer, then you entered the system which was already running, and you had to take the reins on the go of the OKR. So what were also the challenges from that side?
Yeah.
Maybe let's start from the beginning.
Okay. As I said before, I was familiar with OKRs before. I didn't work with my previous company. Then I joined Storyous. This was a thing to do, so we start doing that. And I have my personal experience, which I'm happy to share. But when I discussed with Paolo actually becoming part of this, I was thinking, actually, the guy who not forced me, but it was very clear about using OKRs was my CEO, and I was basically wondering what is actually his experience. Maybe our views are different, right? So I asked my CEO, and basically we are on the same page. But I just took a few notes. What is his experience and a CEO view of OKRs, and he has a very different background. My CEO is the guy who launched and sold companies, Lunchtime and Pizza Time. He's been in Gastro for many years. He has never worked for any organization. He always worked for himself. He's very entrepreneurial, so I was interested in that. So basically I split it in things which pros and cons, basically. So he said very clearly that it helped him focus on what is right and what is the priority for a given quarter. My CEO has a zillion ideas a day, and some of them are brilliant, some of them are less brilliant, and some of them are crappy. And he needs people, and this is also partially my role. This is the role of CBO, actually help to find the diamonds and polish those diamonds and actually makes that happen. So he said personally it helps him very much with the focus. He personally very much appreciates if you define your objectives and key results, and if you monitor them on the regular basis, he actually enjoys seeing the progress. Mind you, progress sometimes is not as quick as you would like to see that. We have experienced that too, but seeing the progress. He said, and this is quote unquote, he says, organization became truly managed. And again, this is a startup, so there was a lot of people doing a lot of things. So from the end of 2016, he said he felt for the first time that somehow we are becoming a regular company. You become intentional. He said also that it's connected to focus, but he said it helped him personally a lot with prioritization. And also, this was noted to himself, prevents from changes priorities too quickly. And also he, as a CEO, he totally buys into the transparency. Again, we are less than 100 people, so it's pretty easy. So this is something he feels very strong about. When it comes to cons, he said it might be actually quite challenging for a smaller organization to get started with that. So that I actually used to work for a larger organization, so that's a slightly different view. Something I would not personally think about, and he actually linked it to the fact that we have a lot of junior people. A lot of people who are actually studying while already working for us. So I've been in this for 25 years, so certain things are pretty normal for me, and it actually helped me to actually take a step back and realize, wow, that might be actually challenging for people, especially for those who are just starting their professional career. Then there is another cons where we actually, my CEO and I, we have a very different view. So he said for a startup, typically you would think about OKRs in quarterly terms. So he said for a startup, sometimes it might sound like eternity, right? It's just like, so at the beginning, I had no idea what will happen on Monday, not what will happen on within 3 months. Where I come from, I was like, well, cool, we have priorities for a quarter, but what about a year, and what about blue sky? Like, where do we want to be in 2 to 5 years? So, and it's actually pretty cool that we have those different points of view, but the perception of time is very clearly different here. And two more, one more thing he said, how do we actually know that we have the right priority? And again, this is partially his business, he's the CEO, and he doesn't have a halo above his head, like we choose the priority, we run it, but do you ultimately know? That's the point. So that was my CEO perception.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing the story. Yeah. So Michael, same question to you actually. What were the challenges where about some time ago you guys starting doing OKRs? There were any challenges to start with? And actually, in addition to that, as Olda mentioned, Practically, what kind of time horizon you are considering at Microsoft? The quarter plus the year. So what were the
so we started around I think 2 years ago with the OKRs, doing that on the whole company basis. And at the beginning, it was a big struggle, I think, for most people. Like, I remember our first OKR planning, and we planned our objectives. You know, we were so happy and excited about hitting them all. And then the end of the quarter came. We had like 7 objectives at the beginnings, and we hit 2 of them partially. So there was a big learning moment, and was like, okay, we actually need to think about that more. Like, how do we set objectives throughout actually well, and how do we set the objectives that we will actually end up working on? Because in that quarter, it wasn't that we slacked and we didn't do anything. It was that we actually, there were so many things coming up that we started doing other things and so on. But from the original conception, we did only 2 of them out of the 7. So that was a big awakening. But I would like to encourage everyone who is doing that. Basically, over time, you become much better. And it becomes basically your second nature in doing OKRs and setting it up. And the process is really enjoyable, and it is a nice way how to prioritize your work over time.
So I have a couple of more questions for you. But meanwhile, I see that there are 26 questions from Slido, so we better start addressing those and start having some more interactive stuff with the guys also in the audience. But the last one I want to touch from my side, which might be there, and there should be Dave moderating. Dave, are you here? No?
I can also add one of the...
Oh yeah, please. So I was saying there should be Dave moderating the Slido, because we're going to start tackling the questions there. But before you go, I will piggyback also this question on YouTube, in addition to what you wanted to say, and to the others, which is my last one, which is, you guys touched the word team in OKRs, but it's not, as you also mentioned many times, that not one side fits them all. So what is the team? You do teams like functionally, there is OKRs for marketing, for sales, for product, for engineering, or at the product team level, or cross-functional level, but it's an existing. But please, continue saying what you were saying.
Yeah, so just to kind of wrap up on the challenges and maybe one of the lessons learned that I forgot to mention, but I'm going to mention now. So it's not just the effort that it requires to implement the OKR, which is time, it's also the timing. So if you're considering on implementing the framework, timing is crucial. So there's 2 failures that I've experienced in the past weeks. One was we tried to introduce the framework in one of our strategical products, specifically after we had delayed one of the releases. So the stakeholders were like, well, here's an OKR for you. How about you get the release on time? So timing is quite, so they weren't receptive of the framework at all. They were quite adverse to it. And another one was tied to actually trying to, scale this framework in MSD actually across multiple teams, across multiple products. I think one of the lessons learned was also around timing. So we started talking about OKRs precisely at the time of the yearly performance review. So that was not really the best timing as well, especially if you're trying to say that this is not going to be tied to your performance review. So that's one of the other things that I wanted to mention. It's not just the effort, but it's also the timing if you're considering and trying out the framework.
So thanks for the remarks. So let's start asking about the team mapping for OKRs. We start from Mike, because he's always the last one. So what is it, when you mention team OKR, what is the team?
So in the all up company level, it's basically for everyone, right? So that's including marketing and product and engineering. Then when it breaks down to teams, we have OKRs for, if we say for my team, it is including the product team and the engineering. So we don't differentiate between engineering or product OKRs. It's just, this commerce OKRs, which is
Commerce
named
team,
my team.
okay. So what in your case, Oldrich, Storyous, what do you map teams for doing?
So I'll try to answer shortly for a change. Basically, it's very arbitrary and it represents our management team.
You can take your time, then we have only 40 questions.
So it's, as I said before, it's product and development. It's one OKR, then we have one for finance, one for HR, one for sales, one for marketing, and one for special projects.
Awesome. So what are teams at MSD Innovation Center?
Teams are quite complicated. So you have product teams, you have...
That's the advantage of being part of a small organization.
Yeah. You have the product team, you have the competency team, which could be product development, agile, or UX, and so on. And then you have even, like the business unit type of teams. So that's one of the lessons learned, that we were trying to structure OKRs as all these teams, or sub-organizations and organizations. And for the next quarter, we're going to actually simplify it a lot and just focus on the product teams and pick it from the bottom.
Awesome, thanks. So I guess we're going to start addressing questions from you guys. I'll go from the top. So can you give us real-life examples of OKRs, ideally cascading? Also example of failure setting OKRs on the right level, and what it led to. Thanks. So we want to take on that. I believe just one of you can take on this, so we can move faster and answering the questions.
So I'll be selfish, I'll take this one.
Let's go.
Okay, because I think there's actually one I wanted to share. It is, I hope it's relevant for the audience. This was I'd like to talk a little bit about our Q1 this year, Q1 OKR. We are a product company, so it's very much product driven. So we had OKR linked to product at the corporate level. So that was the top goal for the quarter. We produce software solutions for point of sales, and the objective was to make relationship and cooperation with suppliers smooth, which sounds pretty vague-ish, right? But basically, what it means that the restaurant which uses our POS, they obviously buy stuff from Macro and Bitfood and these companies, and then manually need to stock up those products. They would typically spend on that 2 to 20 hours per week. We were thinking about a solution which can nail it down to 5 minutes, basically, right? Automated. So it's easy sell. You totally can explain the value, right? So the objective was to make sure that our solution is connected with those suppliers. We had 3 key results. One key result was to look at the biggest suppliers in the Czech Republic, and within the quarter, integrate 5 of them. Okay, so there was one key result. Then the other key result was we wanted to, this is really company level. Then we said we want to get the feedback because we wanted to start selling that solution in Q2. So the other key result was we want to have at least 50 companies actually testing the solution and giving us a feedback. So again, 5, so very specific, 5 suppliers, 50 people testing it. And the last key result was that we want to go generally available, start commercially selling it in Q2. But we said by the end of the quarter, we want to have 10 customers actually paying for the solution already to verify. Because if you ask, with product people, you ask people, would you like to have this function, that function? Very often the feedback is yes. But if you forget to ask, well, are you willing to pay for it? That's a whole different story. So we wanted to verify that people will actually pay for it. So to cut the long story short, we have overachieved. We had more than 5 suppliers connected. That was awesome. It was like 120%. But 50 companies actually using that solution. It was middle of the quarter, and we tracked this on weekly basis. And I was like, what's the progress, guys? Oh, we called 18 companies, right? I've heard from you. What the hell? We are supposed to have 50 people using it. 18, you called 18 people as not. So we focused on that. We were actually pretty much failing with that. As the end of the quarter was coming close, we sort of, as a management, I personally pushed on it. So we called all the customers which were relevant. The feedback was very good. It was like, yeah, that would be nice. We actually trained the people. We activated for probably those 50 people, but we could see in the system that actually probably 2 of them are using it. Okay, so it was like there was fuck up. There was not working at all. So there was a learning. Now, as the end of the quarter was really coming to an end, we said we have a third key result, and that is actually 10 customers paying for it. Having in mind that basically nobody was using it, he said we need to do something different. So forget about those people testing it. Let's focus on selling. And we dedicated basically the portion of our telesales capacity, and they spent 2 weeks work hard on it. And within 2 weeks, they basically sold like 20 customers. So we have overachieved on 2 key results. We completely failed on one, but the key results and the discussion, I actually had very interesting discussion with our investor. The key learning was, and then this is anecdotal, this is one example, but I think it's good illustration to understand if you really want people testing your product, it's actually not a bad idea to pay for it. Because those people who paid before the end of the quarter, we got a ton of feedback on it, right? So I think this was ambitious. We overall, I think it was a success, even though one key result was a complete fuck up from my perspective. And very quickly, so this was corporate, how high level, so you can imagine how it can potentially translate. So the key results for marketing was, okay, so we call this functionality automatic stock up. So how do we communicate to the market? So marketing started to work on microsite dedicated to automatic stock up. We're thinking about what the call to action should be and things like that. Then for the special projects, we had to establish the relationship and contracts with companies like Macro, right? Macro is a giant multi-billion-dollar company, and we are 70 guys. So how do you make sure that they actually listen to you, right? So we had there was PR for the special projects part of the company, and then they very naturally translated into product and development, and on the daily basis it actually translated into backlog, into doing stuff which we want to do. So
I believe that's a very practical cut, a very practical example. Thank you, Olda. We can dismiss that. So actually the second one, I'll ask Luis because he mentioned SMART. It's sort of connected to what Olga said, that there need to be specific objectives and key results, measurable and ambitious as well. The question is, but is the objective that needs to be SMART, or the KR that needs to be SMART? So Luis, by the way, belongs to the SMART team, codename SMART, so he's the best person to address that.
So why does the objective has to be SMART? Aren't the KRs that make it SMART? So yes and no. So
You want to actually define the objective in a way that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many key results you actually refine there. Like in your case, you had the overall objective was to, what was it? Can you remind me the
basically connect our customers with suppliers.
With suppliers,
yeah.
Right. So you, in your case, you define the key results as basically the achievable, realistic, and it kind of made it SMART in a way. So it can be and it can't be. But you want to, at the end of the day, be able to say you achieved the overall objective, regardless if you missed on a few KRs or not. So that's why it should, the objective itself also should be SMART. To be able to measure at the end of the day whether you achieved the objective, regardless of how many KRs you set or failed on.
On a practical level, if the objective is just plain English, you just average whatever is the key result. You wanted to say something?
Just wanted to add to that because I think it's kind of in a contradiction with what was said before, because that first goal to make the connection smooth is kind of an aspirational goal, and the key results help you to understand if it was achieved or not. But in my eyes, I really like your objective, like making the connection smooth. It's really aspirational. Everybody can understand what we are trying to achieve, but there is no metric tied to it. And in my eyes, it's good because the key results provide the metric and the evaluation of the objective was achieved.
And you can just average the key results and therefore grade or score the objective.
By the way, you would not believe how much time and effort went into this one simple sentence.
Yeah.
Like, we had it much smarter and much better, but we're like, this is bullshit. And it was just, so it's the outcome is one plain sentence, but it was a tough discussion, by the way. Maybe just very quickly, the smart thing and this may get very academical. I'm a big proponent of using common sense. If like you understand your business, if you know what you want to achieve, if it makes sense, if it fits, and if you can quantify the outcome, that's okay. I would not overly, very subjectively, I would not. There are other methodologies than SMART, and again, this may be a good discussion around beer, but I would not.
You went for the KISS, keep it simply stupid.
Yeah, there are different ways.
Whatever works for your team.
So smarter KISS. I'll skip the historical question on OKRs, or there's one more. For smaller stages within teams, there's something better than everyone. So I'll maybe skip to the one as from Virgil. For Michael, which also sort of raises a point of confusion, which is it necessary to achieve the key results although you achieve the objective? So it sort of taps into this question of who is smart, the objective of the key results, and what you need to achieve, the objective of the key results, and so on. So I'm also in favor of what the guy from the audience, sorry, I forgot your name, was saying that the objective is just plain English, very simple sentence, very hard to write, a crisp and simple thing, and the KRs are the measurable guys. Michael, can you shed a little bit of light on that? Is it necessary to achieve the key results, or though you achieve the objective, how does it work?
Yeah, so at least how I see it is usually that the key results tell you if you have achieved the objective. So I more am a proponent, or how we use it is that the objective is more vacant. It's not measurable per itself. In the case that I mentioned earlier was like increase the revenue, right? So we can say if we increase the revenue, but we didn't say like by how much and so on. And only by measuring the key results did we know at the end whether we have achieved that objective. So in my case, or my point of view, is you don't really achieve the objective, because if you don't achieve the key results, because the key results is actually what tells you if you did achieve it.
Thank you. So what we learned from the last 5 minutes around the guys is basically we use the objective to say where do we gonna get, and the key results to say how we understand we are getting there, pretty much like that. So
can I have a comment?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
As I understand it myself, I feel like objective, as Michael said, is to increase revenue. It's pretty simple to see, okay, my revenue actually increased in the past quarter, and you don't really need key results for that. Key results are the steps how you get there, and to give everyone the focus. So we will increase conversion, was one of the things he said. We will bring more traffic to our website, and so on. These are the key results that you can also measure, and are the steps to get to reaching the objective.
Yeah. So can be
it helps you. The key results basically help you to get more specific, right? It's like it tells you how you actually gonna achieve it, because you can increase revenue in so many different ways. But we decided to focus on increasing the conversion rate and increasing the number of visits to that particular page.
Again, thank you, Mike. Don't forget that what Olda said and what actually Luis pointed out before still stand very true. So you need a lot of time, a lot of effort, thinking through and setting your OKRs and a lot of communication to come up with something crisp and simple as that. So I'll move to the next question, which is what...
Although there's basically two questions which both are covering like frameworks or tools. So maybe that's sort of one generic question, like what frameworks, what tools are being used by the panelists, and also how do you what tools or what methods do you use to communicate your OKRs within the company.
So do you use any variety of tools like per do, week done, and so on? Do you guys use any tools or just pen and paper, like custom-made templates? Luis?
So here at MSC we use heavily Confluence or the Atlassian stack. So far we've just put the OKRs visible on Confluence and shared the tables made the tables public basically. So everyone can just go into that space and comment, provide feedback, and there's the scoring basically. So it's quite simple. I'm interested in knowing how you guys are doing it.
Yeah. So when I joined, I've tried to introduce week done, which I think I have some reservations about, but I think it's generally a good solution. Nevertheless, as I mentioned multiple times before, we are startup, so we need to bootstrap and be very conscious about the cost. So when I talked to my CEO and when we talked about how many people should use it, what would be the cost, he said, nice try. So we're not using it.
These tools are quite expensive.
Could be, but basically we misuse a little bit. We use, for other things, we use Basecamp. So we use Basecamp for that, even though Basecamp is not used or meant for this, but there is a part of Basecamp which is called, if I'm not mistaken, message board. And we use basically message board, and the way it works is that one thing is sacred at our company, and that is Monday 8 a.m. OKR management meeting. This meeting never gets canceled. This is how we start, how the management starts the meeting. Everybody is responsible for updating OKRs, and you typically look at what you've done last week and what are you going to do this particular week. So everybody is responsible for filling by Sunday midnight, and then we go through it and we keep the entire history. So it's a message board tool which was meant for something else, but it works for us.
Would you call those radical focus meetings then, or not?
We call it OKR meeting, but
okay.
So, Mike, do you use any tools at Microsoft for doing OKRs or custom templates?
Yeah. So what we use, we always have a template which is the same for every team, and it's just a basic PowerPoint presentation which we fill in. We upload it to a common shared SharePoint site which everyone has access to, and everyone can see the OKRs even before they are set and before the OKRs meeting are actually happening. One thing that I wanted to highlight was that after the OKRs are set, what we do to kind of translate them into action and transform them into reality is we use the features of Visual Studio Online, which is the kind of tool to manage your backlog. And there is a specific way how to, you can actually define objectives. It supports OKRs from the box. So you can specify the objective, you can specify the key results, and to those you can link the epics and the work items for the engineers. So you can basically out of the box see the progress on the OKRs by seeing the work that has been done in the backlog, which we go then through every week with the engineering team, and we see if work on some of the OKRs is all of the work is done, or if something is lagging around, and so on.
Go for the last question, and then we can use some time to chill in the air outside, get some beers and network. So the last question is from Chris, which is looking to figure out how to actually implement. I can give you a hand, Chris, if you need. For small early stage distributed teams, you need something better than everyone gets sales. So maybe Olda, since you're working in a small team, you can give Chris some advice on how to implement OKRs. Distributed teams, different time zones, also challenging time zones.
Yeah, we're not
with Australian stuff. So.
In our particular case, we're not distributed team. We're fortunate or unfortunate. It depends how we look at it. But we are sort of centralized right now, or we have our teams in Spain and Poland, but it's the same time zone, so it's not actually that difficult. So I would not. I can talk about how I would recommend to start in a company, in a early stage startup, but no, I don't have any particular experience with the distributed model.
So Michael,
the distributed early stage is good enough.
So you can start with the early stage, and Michael can follow up on the distributed.
Well, ideally, the buy-in from the key stakeholders is an absolute must. So if you have the founder or CEO buy-in, that's again, it's just pretty straightforward. Without that, it might be pretty difficult. If you do not have that, and you have a team and you would like to try that, or you would like to sort of somehow in a partisan way bring into your company, I would recommend basically start doing it on the departmental level, and then talk to the rest of the management team or your manager and show some results. So because that's if you decide to do it yourself just as an experiment, doesn't cost anything. It's just the way you look at how you plan a particular quarter. Having said that, of course, they would be missing the link to the corporate priority. Now
it's a startup, I think. It's not a corporate.
Okay. Well, I mean, when I said corporate, I mean like overall strategy. And by the way, if the buy-in is not there, I think it's a great opportunity to actually engage in the conversation with founders or investors. Like, okay, so if maybe OKR is not the way to go, what are other options for us to make sure that we stay on track, that we do the right thing, that we focus. When it comes to pivoting, like if you want to keep the strategy, if you have overall strategy which you feel it's okay, that you feel that there is a market fit, but particular tactic is not working, you want to change it, you want to pivot it, this might be a good opportunity to bring in OKRs, and if OKRs are not the right thing again, there might be different approaches. So that's probably as much as I don't believe there is any secret bullet. It's about starting and doing it consistently.
So thank you, Olda. And Mike, would you like to add something, some advice for Chris on actually bootstrapping on a small distributed team, since you have experience with distributed teams?
Yes. So we have a benefit of being a big company. So basically every quarter when we have the OKRs, and because of their importance, basically the whole company flies into one location because it's the single most important meeting every quarter.
Everybody everywhere and you're done.
Sorry, say that again.
I was just advising Chris to just buy plane tickets for everybody from Australia to
yeah, but if it is, I would just I mean the importance of the meeting is so big that I would just suggest do it on call whenever, like, and actually like really dedicate a couple of hours set meetings, and really go through the OKRs and the discussions as to why you should have this particular objective. It's really worth it.
On Skype, right? You gotta do it on Skype.
Yes.
Maybe if I may play just very quickly, I somehow implied that you need to convince somebody. If you happen to be in a position that you are the founder or CEO, or that is actually you who are calling the shot, so to speak, and you want to do that, then I would just advocate, just be the example. Start doing it. So that's
Chris, I hope that can help for you.
I have one question.
I would still suggest even to take a private plane and just do it on the plane. But
MSN plane.
Nevertheless, we can keep chatting in the backyard with a glass of wine about that.
You were mentioning the timeline. The timeline is okay. How do you solve that? How do you actually maintain the OKR till when? And how do you decide that? Who's deciding it? Bottom up? Top to bottom?
Well, it depends on the OKR. So if you're the manager or the leader, I think it's pretty much top down, and you set, it's your OKR, the one that you set. But if it's a personal OKR, I think it has to come bottom up.
Cool.
Okay, but how do you set it up? Like, what is your rules for each of you, actually, the time dimension that you will dedicate for this kind of OKR or another one?
Right, so it's the framework is normally focused on quarters. So
the OKR is systematically 4 months.
You do it every quarter, yes.
Yeah.
And you usually dedicate a couple of weeks in between quarters, so 2 weeks before the quarter end and 2 weeks at the quarter start.
And if you achieve one of the OKR before, or it never happened, or it's just like you will extend it for the next quarter, This is exactly what I try to understand.
So maybe we can follow up on that because the time is up. But I have just some closure remarks, and then we can all go networking, and Olivier, you can even chat with the folks and understand. So the final remark are this: yes, please fill this in. Really, it's gonna help us. Tell us how this meetup was, how you would improve it, and especially what you want to see next.
And fill it up to drink wine?
Yes, and fill it up to drink is even better. So as final remarks, I'd like to definitely thank our panelists for beautiful job. A big thank you also goes to Dave and Staniek, the organizer of Product Tank, for helping organizing this and many other amazing meetups. And are those that together with me are going to process all your feedback and try to do the best with it. And as a final big thank you and remark is about MSD and Philip and Teresa and Alex in the IT room that actually help us making this happen. And in addition, I wanted to mention also about MSD. So we have a job board that everybody can use, Mind the Product /jobs for free when it comes down to product jobs. So at MSD, they let me know that they hiring is for a special product management position who specializes in Office 365 integration and SharePoint. So it's not you actually, Michael, but anybody, anybody else who is interested, you can contact Pavel here in the front row, or myself, or anybody at MSD. So again, thank you everybody, and let's just chill, and we have the open area with refreshments and stuff. And thank you all. Thank you, Michael. Have a nice day.
Yeah, thank you. Enjoy your beer. I will get some here too. Bye.
Just a question. Michael,